I held a dagger to her throat, only to realize I was the villain in her story. Chapter 56. Did you see the look on her face? Laura exclaimed, her outspoken nature on full display as she collapsed onto the dining chair in her home, her laughter echoing through the room. She's just a mess. And that dagger thing you did, it was amazing. Mark my words, if another woman decides she wants my mail. I'm using it. I grimaced, leaning against the chair opposite her, my conflicted emotions evident in my posture. The weight of my actions at 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷 bakery pressed heavily on my conscience. It felt good when I did it. But now, I just feel like a raging bitch. I admitted, meeting Laura's gaze. My self-awareness kicked in, tempering the initial satisfaction it felt. Luca asked if he could speak with her at her bakery, and Laura's protective instincts for her brother flared, her eyes narrowing slightly. I said yes. I huffed, unable to completely mask the jealousy boiling through my being. It wouldn't be fair of me not to. Laura's possessiveness over her own relationship shone through as she declared, I would have never agreed to such a thing. Either Hamza would never speak a word again or pick the other woman. She reached for one of 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷's pastries in the bread basket centered on the dining table, taking a hearty bite. She does bake some mean bread, though. The question that had been gnawing at me finally escaped my lips. Was she good for him? I asked, watching as Laura's full mouth parted, crumbs clinging to her lips. Oh yeah. Was she good for Luca? Laura swallowed the remaining chunks of bread, her expression turning serious. Do you want the truth? I nodded slowly, my knuckles whitening against the wooden back of the chair as I braced myself for her response. Look, she sighed, her tone softening. They were good for each other. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐷 helped him out of that lonely grave he dug for himself. A month after he met her, I think I saw his first genuine smile. She helped him live again. Before her, all he would do was wait. It was horrible. The jealousy within me twisted painfully, but I pressed on. Do you think he loved her? Most certainly not. Laura shook her head emphatically, her loyalty to both Luca and me evident in her words. I know when my brother's in love. The way he looked at her was not even 1% close to how he looked at you. Sure, he found her beautiful and sweet, but he did not love her. Rather, he was in love with the idea of her. He made it absolutely clear to her that he would pick you over her in a heartbeat and never, not once made a move that would insinuate he loved her as more than a friend. Her head tilted, examining my downturned features, concern matching her face. Why the sad face? I feel like shit. I pulled out the chair in front of Laura, legs far too weak to support my own weight. I feel like a mushed up pile of shit. Why the bitch lied. Yes, but she helped Luca grieve. She helped him see the light after I disappeared. I looked down, analyzing the beautiful baked pastries resting upon the table. I don't know which. If I was in Luca's position, I would have wanted that too. Lie or not. If it makes you feel better, Luca would have snapped any male who helped you grieve, lie or not. She inched her face closer to mine, lowering her tone. And trust me, I'm not exaggerating. He would be gone. Dead. I know. She had ill intentions. Her male died years ago and her wolf called out to Luca. What if she held and control her attraction? Plus, there was a possibility that I would come back in a century. It wouldn't be fair for Luca to wait so long. You're far too good. Leela. Laura shook her head. 𝐶𝐶. Far too good. She never touched him. Did she? Laura shook her head once more. She only held him when he cried of your absence. Laura's eyes dulled for a small moment at the thought. She was the only one who could calm him. When I asked him why, he said it was because she knew how it felt. I feel even worse. I pulled at my front hairs, guilt sweeping my body. Your Luna complex is developing. Leela, you can't blame yourself. The woman saw Luca as hers, and it was the right thing to make it clear that he lost. Laura consulted, but I was so aggressive. I would have been worse. That doesn't make it right. Screw it, no. I stood abruptly. I have to make amends with her. Why do you always have to be so good? Lara huffed, crossing her arms over her chest. Because my life has just begun. There's no more prophecies, no more outskirts, no more loose ends. I cannot take my first steps by scarring a widow who may or may not have fancied my mail. For goddess's sake. She didn't even touch him, and I held a dagger to her neck. I scoffed at myself as I pushed my chair back under the table. I'll see you in a bit. I'll head to her bakery. Don't forget. Tonight, you're meeting my oldest son. She pointed an accusing finger at me, squinting her eyes. 𝐿𝐲's been dying to meet you ever since I spoke of your name. I'll meet him. What time again? I asked, walking to the door. Leo finishes work at the ministry at 6, so let's say 8 p.m. I halted in my steps, unmoving. What was his name again? I turned around, facing Lara. Leo, she shrugged, an embarrassed smile coming onto her lips. You're the reason he didn't die. If it wasn't for you finding me in the castle all bloodied up that night, he wouldn't be here. My heart stung. Without a second thought, I ran towards Lara and engulfed her in my arms, squeezing her tall body in my arms. This is disgusting, she mumbled, squeezing me even tighter. It really is. I agreed, Luca. I slammed the door of the bakery shut, flipping the sign so it signaled closed to anyone who decided to purchase pastries. There stood 𝐿𝐲, wiping at tables that did not need to be cleaned as dried tears crusted onto her plump cheeks. Her eyes snapped upwards, connecting to mine as she fisted the cloth in her hands. Luca, it's �K𝐼𝐬𝐵. I interrupted, walking towards her. I'm sorry. Wallah, I swear to the goddess I'm sorry. �K𝐮. Tears blurred her chocolate brown eyes as she spoke. If you would just give me a chance to explain myself. What is there to explain? Ice coughed. You lied. You lied and didn't even think to correct your lie when my woman asked you. 𝐿𝐲, she corrected, taking a deep breath before continuing. I know what grief is like. I know how it makes one think. Tell me, now would you have opened up to me as much if I had told you I lost my mail years ago? Everything I told you was the truth. Everything, how I felt and how I still feel, is the truth. I knew that you would have seen me as any other widow if I hadn't bonded with you over the fact that I lost my mail just as quickly as you did. That doesn't make it right. I scowled. And you're right. I would have terminated any other meeting with you if it weren't for the fact that you lost your mail like I did my woman. You broke my heart. Luca, she croaked. I'd been watching you for months. Yet everywhere you walked, waves of grief would spill from your soul with every step you took. The same way I wished I was helped. I thought I could help you. She shrugged with defeat, eyes snapping away from mine. But my feelings developed into so much more, and I held and stopped myself. I've had enough people lie to me. 𝐿𝐲, all my life has been a lie, and to have you do the same, it makes you no different than the rest. I took a step away from her, heart pinching at the sight. I grieved for years. Luca, she leaned over the table, hands supporting her weight. I just knew you wouldn't see me the way you saw yourself. I promise. I wanted nothing romantic to do with you when I first met you, and then I did. She was lying. Her heart said so. Thank you for lifting my grief. 𝐿𝐲, I said, turning my back to her and walking to the door. But what we have can't continue. I was hoping I could befriend you, but your actions tell me otherwise. Just as I was about to reach for the door, it slammed open, revealing a tall, green-eyed beauty who smelled of the wealthiest DS and apples. My soul immediately lightened. Lila, I asked, baffled. Luca, she let out. Relief, would you mind if I had a word with 𝐿𝐲? She looked up at me, her wondrous pools of ire rides and smelting the boulders that shell my heart. Just the mere sight of her made it easier to breathe. I wrapped a hand around her neck and laid a kiss to her head. Would you like me to wait here or outside? I asked, squeezing at the skin of her neck. She looked ravishing in her burgundy caftan. It complemented the color of her eyes wonderfully. Anything you like, she replied, voice made of the finest silks. My heart fluttered. 𝐊𝐤's eyes connected with Alias, chest rising slowly then lowering gracefully. Before walking towards her, fear not, 𝐊𝐤 began. I came here to apologize. Not to continue what we had outside. 𝐿𝐤 shook her head aggressively, eyes widening. Please don't. I lied and deserve punishment for disrespecting your honor. I'll slide that under the carpet this time, 𝐊𝐤 said, jaw ticking for the smallest of moments before continuing. I also came here to thank you. 𝐿𝐤's jaw slacked. Thank me for what? You may have lied, 𝐊𝐤 began, and committed treason, but you helped my male heal a wound that could not be stitched nor cleaned. It may not have been my favorite idea, but regardless, you helped him when nobody else could have. 𝐊𝐤 fisted the fabric of her skirt, sighing. I of all people know that you cannot control your heart, no matter how hard you try, so I cannot judge you for loving my male. Thank you for understanding. 𝐿𝐤 looked down, unable to face the sheer power of 𝐊𝐤. It's. 𝐊𝐤 paused, almost huffing. It's fine, Luke. �K, 𝐊𝐤 corrected through gritted teeth. Sorry. �K told me you would have loved me if we met, but I warned him that I would have hated me if I was you. 𝐿𝐤 sighed mournfully. I just am sorry. I really am. I had pure intentions when I first met him, but my heart would not rest. It's all right. So long as you do not continue relations with him and understand your wrongs, I can forgive you. 𝐊𝐤 turned to face me, silky strands of hair sliding off her shoulders. And so can the king. A smile crawled up my lips. She really was a queen. The king certainly can. I walked up to 𝐊𝐤, sliding a hand around her waist. I do. 𝐿𝐤 wiped her tears, straightening her posture in the process. I understand my wrongs. I really am sorry. I hope you understand. I shut the door behind me, locking it as 𝐊𝐤 walked into our living room, the sight of her back wondrous to admire, her kaftan lining her thin waist beautifully. I've got to say, the last thing I expected was. I paused, shocked. That. 𝐊𝐤 smiled a bright smile as she turned to face me. Luca, I feel so light. Is that so? I feel alive. She ran to me, grabbing my hands and filling my soul with warmth. Now that the outskirts are gone, now that all the bad is gone, I feel reborn. Her eyes glittered as they looked into my own, compelling the butterflies in my stomach to flutter their wings. That's true, I said, cupping her neck in my hands. Our story starts here. Indeed it does, she whispered, eyeing my lips. Indeed it does. Just as I was about to kiss her, she pushed away from me, bouncing into the kitchen with a giggle slipping out of her throat. My heart fell so full at the sight of her smile. You need to update me on everything I've missed so far. I need to make sure you're still worthy of me, she asked, leaning against the marble countertops. I stood beside her, shoulders touching and sparks flying. That's going to take days, I warned playfully. Weeks maybe. Well, we have all the time in the world. Luca, I felt her happiness through our bond, her complete and utter glee. We have all the time you can possibly imagine. Chapter 57 Filler. There's one last thing, Luca said, eyes glimmering against the night skies. To me, it was the most important thing. I sat up against the chair, straightening my shoulders as I snapped my eyes away from the view of our balcony to Luca's eyes. Well then, spit it out, I ushered, excitement throwing through my veins. You told me of father's illness, slay man's portraits, that wretched 𝐿𝐤. 𝐊𝐤's son who is somehow almost twice my age and more. I don't think you'll be surprised. His smile turned into a smirk. Really? Inching his face closer to mine. Really? I concluded. Well, he began. My mother was never the queen. In fact, my mother is a northerner whose memory was wiped and banished from the castle after the white-haired life prisoner found out of the affair her and my father had. My jaw slacked as I slapped a hand to my lips. What? I spoke through my hands. Luca laughed as he tucked a strand of hair behind my hair, head tilting at the sight of my shock. It's the truth. On the 5th anniversary of your disappearance, I visited Mother in the dungeons. She confessed to her unruly sins and told me who my real mother was. His eyes dulled for the slightest of moments before brightening once more. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐩𝐿, your mother is a northerner. I asked, baffled. This is insane. He nodded, prideful of his blood. I must meet her. I insisted, dumping to my feet. By 𝐖𝐡𝐢𝐬𝐧, that's gonna be a problem. You'll get something from our neighbors next door. She can teach me a thing or two. And I need to get some new attire. Those 7 caftans in my closet are simply not new. Luca shut me up by standing and laying a slow, sensual kiss to my lips. He pulled away too quickly. I stared back at him, dumbfounded. Don't stress. Mother can teach you everything if you want to. He spoke with a sway in his tone. You could wear my shirt and still look wonderful. 𝐊𝐲. So don't fret about that either. But she already loves you. 𝐊𝐢𝐳. You are the warrior of all 4 kingdoms, the mother of all werewolves. You are the reason she breathes and strives through these lands without a care in the world. My heart bloomed with a foreign contentness as though a lantern were being lit within my soul. So I took a deep breath and allowed the tense of my muscles to ease. Okay, I nodded, laying my head atop his chest. Okay, she wants to meet you tomorrow. I sighed into Luca's chest, eyeing the full moon with gratitude before answering. Anything for you. Hobby. It was the next day. I was stressed to say the least. Would you calm down? 𝐊𝐲. You can't season mock boost chicken with garlic. Punching it won't make it better. You put that in the sauce. Stop. Lara ordered, grabbing my wrists and forcing them to rest beneath my hips. Look at me. I did just that, meeting her frustrated eyes with my own. Take a deep breath, she instructed, watching as my chest rose. Now let it out. I let it out. That didn't help, I confessed, pursing my lips. At all. Lara sighed before letting go of my wrists and snapping her gloves off of her hands. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐬𝐿. Get up and season the chicken. Lara commanded her oldest son, who sat atop the bar stool that faced us. Anything for 𝐊𝐲. He fake saluted, smiling sheepishly at me before hopping off his bar stool and popping on a pair of gloves. Thank you, 𝐊𝐲. I praised. You won. All you owe me is that beautiful smile. 𝐊𝐲, if you flirt with 𝐊𝐲 one more time, I will claw your eyes out with my own hands. Lara growled, flashing her eyes at 𝐊𝐲. That is so inappropriate. She is your uncle's mate. The heart wants what it wants. 𝐿𝐲. Oh. 𝐊𝐲 winced at the strength of Lara's punch to his bicep, forcing a snort out of me. Say that to Luca and he will behead you. I don't fancy the idea of losing you to my own brother. There's nothing wrong with calling her beautiful, he argued. Tell me that when another man calls your mate beautiful. Lara swatted at the back of his head once more, forcing his nostrils to flare. Whatever. Pass me the dried lemons, he mumbled, cheeks reddening as he snatched the dried lemons from Lara's hand. Who knew 26-year-old males were so hormonal? Lara collapsed onto the bar stool 𝐊𝐲 was previously sat in, wiping at her forehead. Anyways, 𝐊𝐲, I can tell cooking is certainly not your forte, and that's fine. Mother doesn't care about any of that. She was a warrior back in the day, so she'll understand. Are you sure? I asked, leaning against the marble countertops. Mother always said a woman should know how to cook. That was back in her day. Nowadays, a man cook. Plus, Luca is excellent in the kitchen, so you don't need to worry about starving to death. That's not the only thing I'm excellent at, Luca commented as he shut the front door behind him, sending me a cheeky wink I glared at him for. Lara fake barfed and 𝐊𝐲 scoffed. What's gotten my niece so tense? Luca asked, patting 𝐊𝐲 on the back. Heartbreak, 𝐊𝐲 muttered, seasoning the last chicken breast. I pursed my lips, an attempt to stop myself from bursting into laughter. Lara, on the other hand, was pulling at the front strands of her hair. Who's broken your heart? 𝐊𝐲. Luca asked, eyes genuinely concerned as he grabbed the pan of seasoned chicken from him, placing them in the oven. You're E63. Have sharp features and a fit build. Any woman would die to have you. Whoever she is has no taste. I snorted, turning so I was facing Luca as I'd over unable to hold in my laughter. What if Chess mated? Lee asked, hopeless, and you must approach her. Luca eyed me before facing Leo once more. May I ask, who is this infamous woman everyone but me seems to know about? 𝐿's eyes bulged out of their sockets. It's Tanya. Tanya, yes. Lucas' brows furrowed. No, it's not. He looked down at Leo, comically threatening the poor kid. Who is it? Spit it out. I don't want to command you. Leo, I walked behind Luca, just as I was about to squeeze his shoulder. The front door creaked open to reveal a tall, muscular woman with a buzz cut and red hair. Her arms were lined with ancient northern patterns and littered with cars of the past. Lara looked just like her, except her mother was rugged. She looked as though she had seen the moon rise and the sun fall thousands upon thousands of times more than Lara ever could. My hands dropped. Mama, thank you for saving my eldest son, Lara cried out, running to her mother as she wrapped her arms around her. As Leo finally told Luca of his little crush on Leela, Ray asked, pulling away from Lara as a sparkle glittered in her eyes. Fuck, Luca growled. It's not what it seems, Uncle. Leo stuttered, cowering from Luca's soaring build. I suggest you run because my wolf is not happy with you right now. Lucas' response was simple yet all the more threatening. Leo looked behind him, analyzing the fastest yet safest exit from here. I just find her beautiful. Please go easy on him. Lara interrupted. Fertito, Lucas sized Lee up, eyeing him with a ferocity like never before. And so they both ran, disappearing deep within the house, leaving us 3 women to enjoy one another's company. Was I not supposed to say that? Asked Ray Ann, guilty as charged. What do you think? Lara scoffed, reuniting with her favorite barstool. You know your son yet somehow. HS on his way to kill my own. Luca would never kill Leo. He loves that boy more than you can imagine, I reassured, removing my gloves and throwing them into the trash can. You must be the infamous Leo Haddad. Ray Ann sent me a warm smile, approaching me. Indeed I am. I gulped, smiling as best as I could. I'm really sorry, but cooking is not my forte. I did, however, ask the neighbors to make me a batch of mock booze in case anything came up. Who has time to learn how to cook when they're fighting an unruly war? Rain asked, chuckling as she dropped her hand down to the marble counters of my kitchen. I only learned how to cook after eyes. A memory passed through her eyes, forcing her smile to falter for the smallest of moments. After I retired from my war duties. Well then, what do you suggest we do? I could try to cook, but I cannot promise we will leave this kitchen intact afterwards. Ray Ann chuckled, shaking her head. Fear not. I am here to guide you. 𝐿𝐢𝐳, I stilled. 𝐿𝐢𝐳. The only woman to ever call me such a word was my own mother. The last woman to call me that word was 𝐻𝐻 Haddad. 18 years have passed since I had been called darling by a woman older than me. My heart warmed. A smile grew on my lips. Memories of the past, present, and a hopeful future passed through my mind. The breaking of furniture sounded from upstairs, and I spoke. I am yours to guide. Chapter 58. Filler. Lara had been teaching me how to sew for months. Slayman was angry that I chose sewing over painting, but I couldn't help it. I dream of uncovering the arts since entering that cursed castle. Lara's dresses were the first thing that blew my mind. I wanted to make dresses for my daughters, pursuits for my sons and nieces. I wanted to make the outfits that would dictate how they felt certain days. I wanted to make the armor they would wear to training with their father and mother with my own needles and fabrics. Now that I was no longer a warrior and willingly my tie, I had all this extra time on my hands, and I would make sure to use it wisely. You're sewing a dress you're never going to wear. What's the point? Laura asked, baffled as she stared down at the white silk I had connected to my needle. I shrugged, smiling as I ran my fingers down the wedding dress I would never wear. It would be nice to look at, I guess. I still can't believe you denied having a wedding with Luca. I don't think you'll ever get over the look on his face when you said no. I chuckled, shaking my head. I didn't say no. Laura, I said I would be his, just without the formalities. My once bright smile dimmed as Mother's eyes overcame my thoughts. It just felt wrong. Mother always said she would be there the day I got married, and now she's not. I could never host a wedding without her, even if it meant I lost Luca to it. Laura sighed, shaking her head. I just hope my brat of a daughter loves me as much as you love your mother. I cackled, imagines of Laura's daughter slapping her, vomiting and sitting on her rushing through my head. I'm sure she will. I eyed Laura, heart blooming at the love I had for her. Thank you. Laura snapped her eyes to me, brows furrowed. For what? For everything. Shut up before I stab you with this needle. I giggled as I tied the last knot on my dress, the smile on my lips becoming impossibly larger. It's done, I said, standing abruptly, bouncing on my toes in the process. I finished it. Laura, let me see, she insisted, grabbing the dress as she held it up the mirror and gasping. How is this fair? I've been sewing for years and Cal didn't make a proper shirt until 2 years in you. You made this beauty. I love it. I gushed. I love it so much. You got to surprise Luca with this. Laura said, facing me with the dress still in her hands. I know you don't want a wedding, but just make it the two of you. The poor man waited tens of years to wed you. Give him a little something. I sighed, cheeks hurting from the great capacity of my smile. Luca, yes. Perfect. Put it right there. I whisper-yelled as the sleigh man and 𝐊𝐚𝐬 dropped the piano. A little quieter. Please. She's right upstairs and this is supposed to be a surprise. Well, why don't you move it, King? 𝐊𝐴MSA snarled, blowing on his scabbing fingers. That thing was heavy. I still can't believe she chose sawing and this over me teaching her to paint. Sleigh man expressed, scoffing as he watched 𝐊𝐴MSA and I roll our eyes. Shut it, you brutes. Put yourselves in my place before you decide to be arseholes. Brother, get over it, 𝐊𝐴MSA said, patting him on the back. Now let's leave. 𝐻E's going to surprise his woman. Fine. Sleigh man groaned, glaring at the piano before exiting through the front door. I stared at the piano I bought Leela, eyeing the keys I did not understand, wondering what notes would rise with every tap and turn. Ever since I had met Leela, she had expressed her desire to indulge in the arts. With every dress, with every song and painting she passed, her eyes would shine with a curiosity I itched to feed. She lived her entire life fighting for survival, completely unknowing of the beauties scattered around the 4 kingdoms. Leela spoke of the sword she handled so skillfully with hatred nowadays, but spoke of the dresses and jewels she manufactured with such soulful sins. I understood where she came from, but it also saddened me, where back then she used to hold her weapons dear to heart. She now wants nothing to do with them. When I asked her why, she said she was done fighting. She said her thirst for blood was quenched and her need for victory was gone. All she wanted was a life of serenity and peace. She wanted to walk through her upcoming years with a swaying soul and to speak languages nobody other than her and I could understand. I smiled at the thought of her words as I carefully placed the drape over the piano, covering it as best as I could before blowing all the candles shut and walking up the stairs. For the first time in my life, I was tranquil, completely at ease and free of any tense mess. I opened our bedroom door, frowning at Leela's absence. Leela, I called out. Just a second, she replied from the bathroom. I shut the door behind me, brows furrowed. Close your eyes, Luca, she said, a smile in her tone. Leela, just do it. I sighed, veins thrumming with excitement. Are they closed? Yes, I assured. leaning against the door. The sound of the bathroom door creaking open echoed against the silent walls of our bedroom. Her light footsteps walked towards me as her wonderful scent rushed up my nostrils, forcing me to ball my hands into fists as to not open my eyes at the ravishing sight of her. I felt her in front of me, her soft chest brushing against mine and forcing a comforting warmth to swarm in my heart. "Open your eyes," she asked. So I opened them. My lips parted. My eyes widened. My heart pulled in every direction there existed. There stood 𝐊𝐢 in a wedding dress, smiling up at me as her green eyes shone against the moonlight that graced our balcony windows. The white silk brought out the tan of her skin beautifully, her exposed shoulders shining ever more. Her hair bounced off her shoulders in wondrous waves, forcing my arms to twitch in ache of touching the strands. "𝐊𝐢," I croaked, heart slamming into my stomach as I dizzied at the sight of her allure. "𝐊𝐢, you look divine." A blush stained her cheeks, evoking her to break eye contact with me and face the floor. I placed my finger on her chin and pushed upwards, compelling her to look at me. "Look at me." I cupped her face in my cheeks, voice quivering at the beauty she bewitched me with. "Goddess, look at me." "I'm looking," she insisted, giggling as her cheeks red and evermore. My eyes burned with tears as I stared down at her. If it weren't for the painful beating of my heart, I would have imagined this to be a fabrication of my memory, a mere remembrance that would remain unfaithful to my heart, something I could only dream of. But no, this was real. 𝐊𝐢 stood in front of me wearing the color white, and she was more alive than ever before. I ran a hand down my face, an attempt at wiping my tears. A failed attempt. "Luca," she chuckled sadly through teary eyes. "Why are you crying?" "I could ask you the same," I rasped, wiping her straight hair with my thumb. "You're beautiful. You're beautiful and so much more." "Stop it. I do not handle compliments all too well." "Well, which? You're just going to have to then, aren't you?" I asked, the white-hot fire contents of my heart spilling into my gut as I spoke no. I refused to ask. I laid my lips onto hers, silencing her. She responded immediately, wrapping her arms around my neck and further impelling my heart to explode from within my chest. I pulled away first, watching as her eyes fluttered open. "Luca," she spoke of my name in that soft tone of hers. I love you. 𝐊𝐢, I confessed. "I love you more than the moon could ever imagine. You cannot make me cry after I spent all those minutes pampering my face for you." She chuckled, wiping her tears. "Come downstairs. I have a surprise for you," I said, running my hands down the length of her arms. "Though I must admit, I don't think it can beat this. Luca, I already told you I don't want anything. You've been buying me too much stuff, arg." Lara squealed as I carried her in my arms, instantaneously wrapping her arms around me for support. "You're going to regret this." "Oh, I'm pretty sure I won't," I insisted as I walked down the stairs. "It's your turn to close those eyes of yours." She rolled her eyes before closing. I slowly put her back on her feet as I walked her through the living room where the piano stood, in all its mighty, outside the back patio where our small garden laid. I made sure she was standing right in front of the sliding glass door, admiring the way the wind swiveled through her hair, the way the moonshine glimmered against her skin. My heart skipped a few beats just looking at her. It felt like I was going to throw up, burst into a fit of tears and jump in glee all at once. "Open your eyes." 𝐊𝐢 opened her eyes and gasped, slamming her hand onto her lips. Without a second thought, she ran to the piano and pulled the drapes off of it. I followed suit, blood pumping at the sight of her excitement. "Luca," she spoke my name in amazement and appreciation, her tone lightening as she cupped her own face in her hands. How did you get this here? We don't make pianos in the north. For you, anything is possible. Verdi," I told her, wrapping my hand around her wrist and pulling her to the seat. I laid a kiss to the top of her head as she sat. She admired the keys with a newly found passion in her watery eyes. She pressed a few notes, flinching at the sounds that came from her touch. She ran her fingers across the ancient wood of the instrument all before she turned and faced me, tears helplessly running down her face. I squatted down, eyes leveling with hers. "What's wrong, Verdi?" I asked. "Talk to me. I'm going to master this piano," she croaked. "I'm going to become so good at this so that I can teach my daughter how to play. I'm going to become so good that all my daughter has to worry about is whether or not she is prepared for her mother's lesson, and not what monsters lay beneath these grounds." She faced the piano once more, taking in a shaky breath. "I'm going to become so good at everything that all she has to worry about is catching up to me, and not fretting with swords and battlegrounds." The strings of my heart pulled as I lay hands on her shoulders, squeezing ever so lightly. "Yes, you will, my love," I said. "Yes, you will." Chapter 59. Look 9 months later. 𝐊𝐢's water broke. She was rushed into the birthing quarters where she had been resting close to for the past week. I was not allowed in the room. Something about the bond affecting with the birthing process, but goddess, did I want to be there for the rise of our daughter or son? 𝐊𝐢 said she was sure it was a girl. She felt it to her core that it was a girl, but I had a feeling it would be a boy with heart just like his mother's. I had a strong feeling bouncing from within my gut that it would be a boy with eyes the color of grass and a wolf even stronger than mine. I bit my fist in an attempt to stop myself from smiling as I leaned against the chair that laid right outside the birthing quarters. Laura, 𝐊𝐢𝐧 and 𝐿𝐢𝐻𝐴 begged to be there to witness the birth of their next king or queen, but I refused, adamantly refused. Might I add, it felt too personal of a moment to share with others. 𝐊𝐢 did not seem to mind it, but I begged her to just let it be the three of us until she finally agreed. I could not comprehend that just a year and a half ago, I had been mindlessly strolling through the northern markets, completely unknowing of the fact that 𝐊𝐢 and I be awaiting the birth of our first child. Within the past few months, I learned to appreciate what had happened. I learned to appreciate 𝐊𝐢 every day, as thought it were my first time meeting her, for I did not know when she was going to disappear. The door slamming open snapped me from my thoughts, forcing me to rise on both of my feet. "Your baby is alive and well, King." The doctor smiled at me, opening the door furthermore. "Come in. Is 𝐊𝐢 okay?" I asked, heart squeezing, tired, but definitely okay. She gestured for me to come in as she walked out. "Come on now. Your woman needs you." My heart jumped in my chest. My ears rang. A nervous shiver ran down my spine, and I walked in. There lay 𝐊𝐢 coddling a baby the length of my forearm, whispering sweet nothings into its face as she rocked it in her arms. I shut the door behind me, forcing Laura's eyes to snap up to me. "Luca," she croaked, licking her dry lips. "H is beautiful. So handsome. He my son." I took slow, shaky steps towards the bed 𝐊𝐢 rested in and shut my eyes. It felt as though I were about to collapse. "Open your eyes, Luca," 𝐊𝐢 said, tone soft. "You must look at him." "I can't," I admitted, falling on to weak knees. "Why not, hubby?" she asked. Even with my eyes closed, I could picture her with her head tilted and her brows risen. I could picture her beautiful little eyes looking up at me in diving curiosity. "I'm not sure. I feel your fear in our bond, Luca," she said, laying a soft kiss onto my forehead. "You're enough. You're going to be a great father. You don't need to have a dad to be a good one." It wasn't until 𝐊𝐢 wiped her thumb onto my cheek that I realized I was crying. "Open your eyes, Kumar," she said. So I opened them. I followed 𝐊𝐢's command and opened my eyes only to meet eyes greener than 𝐊𝐢's. I followed 𝐊𝐢's command and opened my eyes only to be met with small hands stretching to grab my cheek. I followed 𝐊𝐢's command and opened my eyes only to be met with my first child, a boy so fragile with a heart beating so strongly it made my own quiver in its place. Time had ceased to exist. It was simply 𝐊𝐢, my son and I meeting one another for the first time. 𝐊𝐢 laughed. I cried. My son growled with the strength of a bird, his eyes flashing that beautiful green color his mother wore. It was a moment I did not want to leave. It was a moment I wanted to live forever and ever. It was a moment I did not want to escape. "What should we name him?" I asked, smiling as he grasped onto my fingers with a toothless grin. "I had a thought, but I didn't know if you would like it." "Spill it." "Hassan." Leela spoke of my son's name with pride. "Hassan Balusi." I shook my head, watching as Leela's smile fell. "No," I said, smiling at her. "Why not?" Hassan added. Her lips parted at my response, eyes widening oh so evermore. "Docent, that sounds so much better." "It does, but the Balusi family name means nothing to me." Leela, I confessed, running my fingers through her chestnut strands. "Your family has treated me like their own more than mine ever did. For God's sake. Ivy never even met my father, may his soul rest with the moon." "Are you sure?" "Luca." Her eyes sparkled as she sat up with Hassan in her hand. "This isn't." "I'm sure." "Leela, Leela." I nodded reassuringly. Ivy never been so sure of anything. Leela 6 months later. I sat in front of the piano, one hand placed atop the resting keys and the other holding Hassan. My soul swayed as I played a little tune, watching as Hassan giggled as he clapped his hands softly against one another. He was such a peaceful child. All he did was sleep, eat, play, and poop. He rarely ever cried, rarely ever nagged and broke things. Laura was so envious of him, even threatened to steal him away from me, to which I kindly refused her offer. I noticed Hassan's eyes fluttering to sleep at the sound of my last note as his beautiful green eyes went to sleep with his pure little soul. For a few minutes, I just watched as he snoozed away in my arms, squeezing them every now and then in his deep slumber. Without a second thought, I stood from my beloved piano and walked up the stairs. As quietly as I could, I opened the door to our bedroom and placed Hassan in his crib. Ali, the wonderful painter, hand-made the crib for us. I rocked the crib as Hassan slept, admiring the tan of his skin against the shine of the full moon. He looked so fragile, so breakable against my scarred skin. The strings of my heart pulled painfully at the sound of his heartbeat gracing my ears. Hassan's heart beat so quickly, as with all babies. It broke my own to think of how hard his body was working to both keep him alive and make him grow into the king he was supposed to become one day. I turned around, only to face Luca, who was also seduced into a deep slumber. I frowned. He was drowning with pack duties, visitations, and the drafting of new legislation, yet somehow he always made time for Hassan and I. He always found a way to make it back home in time, even if it meant he had to shift into his wolf and run all the way from the south back to the north. I loved him for it. Every now and then, he would confess his thoughts to me of how holding Hassan stressed him out, how the mere size of our sons scared him to death, how he thought he was a bad father simply because he didn't have a blueprint to look back to. It was quite the opposite. The absence of his father made him an even better one. I tiptoed to the side of his bed and bent down so that my eyes once. "I love you, I love you," I whispered. "I love you to the moon and back." "I love you too," he whispered back, forcing a gasp out of me. He continued sleeping. I poked him. He didn't even flinch. I poked him one more time. No response. My lips parted. Even when he was asleep, completely unconscious of what was going on in the real world, he still had it in him to tell me he loved me back. He still had it in him to be a good husband and a good father. My heart squeezed ever so tightly at the sight of him, with a flutter in my heart and a bounce in my steps. I stood back up and went to the balcony of our home and sighed, content lie. Whereas back then there was nothing more I craved than to slay a 10-headed beast with my bare hands. Nowadays I found myself craving to learn a new song. Whereas back then I only found peace in death. Now I find peace in the notes that hide beneath the keys of my piano. I stared back at the full moon with a profound fullness in my heart. "Thank you," I spoke to the goddess. "Thank you so much for everything you've given me and taken away from me." Chapter 60, the end of Leela and Luca. 20 years later. Leela. "Hassan, that was absolutely beautiful," I said, watching as he blushed, smiling warmly at the compliment he received. "You played the piano like a swan gliding through a lake, even better than I." His jaw slacked as his bright green eyes connected with mine. Green meeting green. You finally admitted it, he exclaimed, towering over me much more than his father ever did as he stood up in shock. You finally admitted that I gasped. Are you insinuating that you ever held the thought that you were better than me? I asked, feigning shock. Maybe. He shrugged, running his fingers across the 20-year-old piano keys. Maybe I am. I noticed his eyes dull as he concluded his sentence, frowning ever so slightly at the mention of the serenades his fingers sawing. I squeezed his arm, compelling his beautiful eyes to snap back to my own. What is it, Hassan? I asked, his pain immediately becoming my own. Why do your eyes lose their color as we speak? Why do you slug through your days when you used to waltz through them just 2 years ago? He shook his head. It's nothing. Mother, you are my son. Hassan, I began. So if you, for even 1 second, think that I cannot tell whether there is something of the matter with you by the flick of your wrist, then you best correct yourself. His lips parted at my words. So speak. This is not something I can simply speak of. He scoffed. And besides, speaking of it will do nothing to change it. There is no point in letting my feelings be in the hands of others who will not do anything about it. I will do anything. Hassan, I said, heart pulsing with aggression at the sight of his distraught. Absolutely anything for you. The sound of the front door being open forced Hassan's eyes to disconnect from my own. I sighed in frustration before turning, watching as Luca walked hand in hand with 𝐿aura, my beautiful daughter. She won the battle. She beat that northern brute like she was made to do it, Luca said, pulling 𝐿aura's fist so that it faced the ceiling. She's a warrior, just like her mother was. I told you. Leela, I told you she would beat him. 𝐿aura giggled as Luca placed his hands underneath her shoulders and lifted her into the air, celebrating her victory, a victory I did not wish to see nor desire to partake in. Ever since 𝐿aura was born, she had an eye for all things sharp and shiny. She played with my swords like they were dolls and had the scars to prove it, one running right through her cheek all the way to the side of her jaw. I loved her to death, but her ache for aggression scared me. It scared me to think that she possessed a desire to kill and to conquer. A desire I wished I could erase as the years went by. She stood with all her might as Luca put her down, tall and toned, with beautiful chestnut locks reaching the slope of her back and bright blue eyes just like her father's. Her olive skin reflected the afternoon sun beautifully as her and Luca spoke of strategies she could utilize to beat her next opponent in the Northern annual duels. Even more of a reason not to speak, Hassan muttered, pushing past me as he went to hug his little sister and whisper a word of congratulations before hugging his father and leaving our home. I pursed my lips, calming my heart at the sight of him. Mama, you should have seen me. I jumped and kneed her right in the face just like you said. 𝐿aura gushed, eyes sparkling at the pain she brought her opponent. You gave her tips. Lucas' brows furrowed. Go of 𝐿Y, almost making fun of me. Shut it. As much as I do not endorse these activities, I did not want to bandage yet another injury of 𝐿aura as I scoffed, eyeing the door that shut closed at the absence of Hassan. Just say that you wanted me to win, 𝐿aura said, tone cheeky as she wrapped her arm around my waist. Gosh, did I want to see her win? What I want you to do is to drop that sword, I remarked, watching as she rolled her eyes. Never, mother, she said, almost mocking me. It was my turn to roll my eyes. One day you will understand the consequences a sword comes with, I said, running my hands through her beautiful chocolate locks as she sat atop a bar stool. That day is sadly not today. It certainly isn't. And I hope it will never come. I sighed, memories of my captivity in the outskirts rushing through my mind. Memories of my only friend ever being a sword for 6 solid years. Memories filled with bloody hands and mangled minds. 𝐿aura, are you sure you want to enter the guard trials? I reasoned, watching as she groaned. Fine. I won't speak of this again, it's just, you're too young to understand what awaits you. Mother, the outskirts are not a thing anymore, 𝐿aura cried out, balling her hands into fists. I don't get it. You're so supportive of Hassan and his P&O dreams, why can't you be the same with me? I just beat a man who was double my size within the 3 minutes. The same way you dreamt of a life of serenity. I dream of a life with a sword. I dream of a life fighting for my people and myself. My jaw ticked at her words. She simply could not comprehend that I cared for her, that I feared she wouldn't ever be able to unhook herself from the lives her sword will take in the future. Lara, why don't you go to your room? I'll join you in a little bit. Does that sound fine with you? Luca said, laying a hand on her shoulder. Alara's eyes filled to the brim with tears, her bottom lip quivering before she nodded and left to her room. I let out a shaky breath, unmoving until I heard her door closed shut quietly. Leela, Luca took my hand in his, forcing our eyes to connect. The girl has made up her mind. She is 18 your age when I met your age when I assigned you as the guard of all 4 kingdoms. I know, but Luca, she will never understand what it feels like to take someone's life with her bare hands. That changes you forever. I don't want my little girl to feel like a monster. I don't want her to feel the sorrow I felt when I killed my first man. I still dream of the witches I've slain and the lives I've taken 20 years later. You were forced into this destiny. Verdi, Luca said, eyeing me with intensity as his ocean orbs carved into my own. Alara was not. Trust me when I tell you that she was made for this. You can see it in her eyes when she holds a sword. They sparkle with excitement, whereas yours they dulled with grief. Yes, because I knew what the sequel of my sword was. I corrected, agitated at his support. Would she not be better off smearing her hands from paint than blood, innocent or not? Alara is just like I was. Leela, and Hassan is just like you were. Luca cupped my neck in his hands. There is no way in hell you will be able to convince her otherwise. Trust me. I sighed, stepping out of his hold as I laid both hands on my hips. When are the guard trials? I asked, more so demanded. Luca smiled. A month. Exactly. He replied, okay. I said, okay, it'll come to drop her off. Good. He said, tone curt as he tried to contain the length of his smile. She wants you to train her as well, but that's a story for another time. Again, I sighed. I'll think about it. 𝐏𝐞𝐬, I promised. I have to check on Hassan. Make sure Alara is okay and tell her I'll contemplate whether or not I should train her. I've got it handled. I looked for Hassan all evening, even skipped dinner trying to find the man. It was fair that the goddess gave him legs longer than his father's and a torso the size of a door. He was a big man with an even bigger heart. Luca said I was the same, but I refused to believe so. How could I have a big heart when I basically approved sending my daughter off to be beaten? Or worse, to kill? How could I have a big heart when I was sanctioning that the blood my little girl would soon have on her soft hands? The scent of coconuts and pine rushed up my nostrils, effectively interrupting me from my spiraling thoughts. Hassan. I followed his scent until I reached what seemed to be our eastern desert house. It was only when I squinted my eyes that I noticed a man sat on the couch facing the 1,000-year-old rocks with a drink in his hand. The man looked to his left, eyes glittering green for the most minute of seconds before his focused on the rocks once more. My heart pulled. I approached Hassan. His ears perked up, alerting me that he knew I was present with him in his lonely moment, though he did not seem to acknowledge my presence. Hassan, I've walked through the northern lands for 2 hours only to find you drinking your day away, I said, tone disappointed as I crouched so that my eyes leveled with his. What's wrong? My son, what makes your heart ache? What makes your soul crave liquor and not love? He stared into his glass of whiskey, eyeing the drink with fever before gulping down the rest of its contents. You wouldn't understand. His tone was curt, yet all the more saddened. Yes, I would. Of all people, I will understand. I begged, palming his knee. Talk to me. He paused for a beat or two, thinking of all the scenarios his secret spilling would result in, just like I would. Before he spoke, you promise not to overreact? He asked, eyes finally connecting with mine. I nodded. I promise. 𝐾𝐞𝐬. He placed his sorrowful cup onto the wooden table in front of him, the midnight wind swiveling through his silky strands of hair before beginning. I don't want to become king. The breath was rushed out of me. Eyed 𝐿𝐲 for a moment, tightening my grip on his knee, but he continued nonetheless. The last thing I would want to do in this lifetime is become king. He leaned against the couch, eyes facing the stars. It seems our destinies are intertwined. Mother, you were forced to become this kingdom's greatest warrior. And I will be forced to become yet another king who will pass away signing off on legislation and drafting treaties. But 𝐻𝐻, I stuttered, unable to comprehend the casualties his resignation will bring. You underwent training with a bright smile on your face. You promised all for kingdoms you will become king. You respond to your father's every wish to become king with might. Your crowning 𝐿𝐲𝐧 in a year and 6 months. Why do you think I speak to my liquor then to you? He shook his head as he watched a star glimmer above him. I find peace in the keys of my piano, not within a crown on my head. I find peace in soulful songs, not power. My heart squeezed tighter than it ever did in the once vanished lands. It smashed into my stomach and forced bile to rise in my throat. I sat on the couch right next to 𝐻𝐻, facing the stars with him. What do you want to become? I asked. A smile overcame his lips. I want to become the greatest pianist there ever lived. I want to write songs that soulmates will dance to in the nighttime as they share their deepest secrets with one another. He spoke with an unknown passion. I want to draft orchestras that will make people ache for more. I want to attend the university father built and learn how to move people with notes, not sign documents and orders. My eyes burned with tears. I understood where he came from. The day I stepped foot into the castle, I had an adamant craving to engage in the arts, but never felt I was worthy enough. I was trapped by the sword hooked to my waist and the dagger strapped to my boots. Every chandelier I passed by, every door I walked through that was carved with ancient patterns, every painting that spoke to me, every song that called for me. I knew what he felt with fire. 𝐻𝐻, don't. Mother. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. Don't. It's not possible. We sat in silence for a bit, allowing the heaviness of our burdens to register within our souls. Does 𝐿𝐲𝐻 know about this? I asked. He nodded, chuckling. I told her when I was 15. She told me she could become queen so that I could attend the royal university. I had to break it to 13-year-old 𝐿𝐲𝐻 that it didn't work that way. He admitted. I wish it did. I mumbled. I truly wish it did. The 4 kingdoms would never agree. A female alpha is one thing, but a queen to rule without a king. They would call it blasphemy. A light lit in my head, forcing me to stand upwards. Except it's not blasphemy, I whispered to myself. Try and convince the 4 kingdoms that. They would cause a revolution, an uprising of all sorts. Laws can be changed. I corrected him. Laws can most certainly be changed, and 𝐿𝐲𝐻 is definitely strong enough to become queen. She is, but nobody else would agree. Nobody thought I could ever pass the guard trials. The old queen tried to exile me at one point. All odds were against me, but I made it out alive. I made it out stronger than ever. Adrenaline rushed through my veins. 𝐿𝐲𝐻 would love to be queen. She was made for it. She always spoke of how she wished she was me, how she wished to become great like you and father. I would even go as far as to say it's her dream to become queen. 𝐻𝐻 confessed. I refused to have my children not achieve their dreams because of century-old laws. I exclaimed, grabbing his wrist and pulling him upwards. Oh, how I hate how you'd hour over me. Might as well get used to it. I swatted him across the chest. You will attend the university for the next year and 6 months. I understood. I commanded, happiness swarming through my chest at the excitement that radiated off him. I will speak to 𝐿𝐲𝐻 tonight. He'll keep this from your father for now. He has much to attach to the idea of you taking his crown. But you will attend university. Mother. 𝐻𝐻 shook his head, a sad smile overcoming his lips. It's not possible. I would not want to indulge myself in needless hope. I would simply fall in love with a false reality only to be stripped back to my throne. It was my turn to shake my head. Come home, 𝐻𝐻𝐻. I'll deal with it. I shut the door behind me as I walked into 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬's room, forcing her to sit up straighter in bed as she readjusted the book in her lap. Is 𝐻𝐻𝐻 back home? She asked, worry settling atop her brows. He is. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐻𝐻𝐬. I nodded, kissing her in the forehead before sitting next to her. What brings you to my chambers so late at night? She asked, bumping her shoulder into mine. An idea. What idea? What do you think of becoming queen? Her jaw slacked. 𝐻𝐻𝐻 told you, she exclaimed, slapping her hands onto her lips. That's so embarrassing. No, it's not, I reassured. If anything, it's a beautiful thing to want to become. Well, she bit her lip, blue eyes distancing themselves for the slightest of seconds. Of course I would love to become queen. I've dreamt of ruling all 4 kingdoms for ages now. I don't know how to do it. 𝐻𝐻𝐻 teaches me everything Dad teaches me behind his backs, but I've got the gist of everything you're supposed to do. It's not going to be easy. You speak if it's possible. She rolled her eyes. We have a year and 6 months. Cousin 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 will inherit the position if 𝐻𝐻𝐻 doesn't take it. He's a mighty alpha. There's no way I can beat him even if I am allowed to challenge him to a duel. Which may I remind you am not. The door opened, revealing a sleepless 𝐻𝐻𝐻 who mindlessly sat on 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬's desk chair. Continue. Don't mind me. I couldn't help but overhear this conversation, he said, gesturing for us to continue. Your father can change the rules. If anything, it's fair, I pointed out. The men had been in charge for too long. Look at the East. They've got a female alpha and they're absolutely flourishing. 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 smiled, as did 𝐻𝐻𝐻. I guess that doesn't seem too far-fetched, she said, smile growing. It really doesn't. 𝐻𝐻𝐻 agreed. My heart bloomed at the sight of my children smiling. Why are you crying, Mother? 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐬 asked, wiping the traitorous tears dripping down my cheeks. It's just my story has ended, but you 2 stories have just begun. The end. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.